Good evening and welcome to this Parents' Twilight session. I'm John Beaton and I'm the DYW School Coordinator for Broughton and Queensferry High Schools. Developing the young workforce at DYW is the Scottish Government's youth employment strategy and aims to connect industry and education to ensure that our young people are informed and inspired about the world of work and the different routes and pathways available to them when they leave school. This evening, we're delighted to welcome or to be joined by Joanna Fry, Access Manager in the Widening Access and Transitions team at the University of St Andrews. The university was recently ranked #1 in the UK by the Times and Sunday Times Good University Guide 2022 and counts amongst them some of their alumni, including Alex Salmond, former First Minister of Scotland, Chris Hoy, Olympic gold medalist, and Louise Minchin, ex-BBC Breakfast presenter and current I'm a Celebrity contestant. The University of St Andrews offers a programme of courses as an alternative to sixth year in school and offers an exciting gateway to university in the faculties of science, medicine, physics and astrology, and arts. Throughout today's presentation, we encourage you to post your questions in the chat function, which is right of the screen. We will try and pick them up towards the end of this session. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Joanna, who will lead today's session. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you so much, John. That was quite an introduction. Hope I live up to that. So as John said, my name's Joanna. I am the Access Manager for Widening Access and Transitions at the University of St Andrews. That means that my remit covers Scottish recruitment, supported pathways, encouraging people to apply to St Andrews, and also looking after students once they actually make their way into St Andrews. So we don't just have support in place for applications, we take that support right through. So that's kind of my remit. I was also a graduate of St Andrews. I came as a mature student and studied English, so I have experienced a little bit of student life. What I'm hoping to do this evening is just give you a little quick snapshot of what it might be like to study at St Andrews. We're going to have a little look at how to apply, what entry grades we might look at. We talk a little bit about our contextual admissions processes. And then, as John said, we're going to talk about the gateway programmes, which are alternative entry routes that you may or may not already be aware of. And then I want to touch just really quickly on the support we have available, both pastoral support and financial support. So a little bit about St Andrews. We are the oldest university in Scotland, so we've been teaching on this site for around 600 years. Doesn't by any means mean that we are a backward-looking university. We're very forward-facing. We're research-led teaching, so the people that are actually teaching you in your classes are people that are right at the top of their academic field. So they are the people that are writing books, they're writing the papers, and leading in their field. And they'll be the people that you have quite close contact with in terms of tutors and lecturers to deliver your classes. We have a flexible degree structure, which is what allows us to create these pathways that we're going to talk about tonight, which allows you to have a little bit of movement in your academic subjects in your first 2 years of study and not actually have to make a decision about the degree you want to take until you're making that transition from second year into third year. So there's movement in the degree structure, and we can talk about that a bit more later as well. We're quite a small university. We have about 10,000 students, which is quite small. But within that, we have about 142 countries and territories represented. So that means that you will be studying with people from all over the world. So it may be in your classes, you have people that are from all around Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales, but there could be Europeans, there could be Americans, you could be people from Asia, Singapore, China. So it's a really interesting place to learn because you'll be challenged and be introduced to people that are from a completely different background and culture from you, which is quite a good place to be when you're learning. And we also offer a really wide range of subjects across the arts and sciences. So I've got a slide here which just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of the sciences subjects that we offer in our arts and divinity faculty. So lots of different subjects in there. And these can be taken in different combinations. We have about 900 different degree titles that you can take by combining different subjects from the faculty. So we have the arts and divinity faculty, and then we have our science and medicine. So we have the science subjects, and then we have our medical faculty, which runs the A100 programme, which has a slightly different structure. So it doesn't, not everything we're talking about this evening applies to medicine, but for all other subjects, we have that flexible degree structure. So the teaching methods here at St Andrews, we teach on a modular basis. So we teach in 12-week blocks, and students take up to 3 modules in each term, so we call them semesters. So between September and Christmas, and then January and February through to May, you will have modules. You will be assessed through that module. You get a grade for that at the end, and at the end of the 12 weeks, you move on to a different module and maybe a different subject, or building on what you've done in that first semester. And that's what gives us this flexible teaching route. So you can change your subjects around a little bit. You have compulsory subjects for the degrees you want to take, and you can take some additional subjects. So you get a good broad range of subjects and kind of reinforcing your learning. So if you're taking English, as I did, for example, I took my compulsory English modules, but I also studied a little bit of divinity, and I studied a little bit of art history, and I did some information technology. So that just gave me different viewpoints on the English literature. So there was lots of information in divinity that really informed my learning when I came to reading Reformation literature, for example. So that's kind of how we fit it together. Generally teach in quite small groups. We do have big lectures, but your tutorial groups will be probably around 7 or 8 people in a group with a tutor, which could, as I say, be one of our academic members of staff who's a specialist in the field that you're learning in. We are research led, as I said, so we do considerable amounts of research in each academic field, and as I said, those people that are doing that research are the people that are teaching you. And we really do want to encourage independent learning. So you'll have around about between 12 and 25 hours a week of contact time, depending on your subject. But outside of that, you are expected probably to do up to around about a 40-hour week of teaching in total. So there'll be things for you to go away and read and learn, follow up on coursework, group work and things that we would like you to do outside of the classroom. So we're really trying to encourage that sort of inquisitive, academic, independent learning. So if we talk very quickly about our decision making, so when we are looking at applications, we are competitive, we do receive a lot of applications, but we do look at applications as a whole. We don't just look at grades. So we look at your academic qualifications, but we also look really closely at your personal statement and your reference. We take in a lot of the contextual information about your application, so that might be data-driven contextual information about school, about the area you live in, that sort of thing. It might just be information that you or your referee provides for us. We may invite some candidates for interview, and that would come into play. But the thing I would like you to take away is that we actually read every single application that is made to St Andrews. We don't have any algorithms in our admissions processes. Every application is read by a person, and probably read by at least 2 or 3 people before a decision is made. So we really do take our time and try to make sure that we're being fair and considering everybody equally. It's also one of the reasons why St Andrews is quite often one of the later universities to put decisions out. So some universities can get them out quite quickly because we do read very carefully all the applications. We are likely to put our decisions out a little bit later, probably into the new year after that deadline in January. So not having heard from us doesn't necessarily mean anything. We have 3 different levels of entry grades, which I think is quite common among universities now. So we have a standard entry, which is the standard academic achievement that we would consider for entry. We have what we call a minimum entry, which is an adjusted academic achievement, which is based on information relating to you personally, and that's what we would require you to achieve if that is the decision that the entry levels that are applicable to you. And then we have our 3rd level, which is gateway programs. So the gateway programs, the profiles are just below the standard and minimum. So their gateway programs are aimed at students who have just narrowly missed the minimum entry requirements and meet the eligibility criteria for the gateway programs. And it allows you still to access St Andrews, to access all those programs that we've talked about and all those different subjects, but we give you a little bit of support over the first year of your study, just to make sure that you settle and that you find your feet, and then by the second year, you're off and picking things up. So as we say, that's our supported entry. So the way you find out which your entry grades are is by using our entry indicator tool. So if you go onto our website, the link is there, and you just put in a little bit of information about yourself. So you put in what school you're at, where you live, have you taken part in any pre-HE liftoff, Sutton Trust, that kind of thing. And it will tell you whether we would consider you to be a standard, a minimum, or a gateway applicant if you were making to apply to us. So have a look at the indicator tool and see what that brings up for you. Once you've made your application, submitted it to us and we've read it, there are sort of 4 different things that can happen. So we might potentially invite applicants to interview. So are usually people that we are considering for gateway programs might be invited for interview. All medicine applicants are interviewed, and there are one or two other programs that do invite for interviews. So that might happen. We would put a decision on your application if it might be unsuccessful. But if it's not, there are two different levels. You might receive an unconditional offer, which means we're quite happy that you've met all the conditions that we require. Might be a conditional offer, which means we still would like you to achieve some more qualifications in your next round of exams. Or you may receive what's called a dual offer. So it may say that you have a conditional offer for English, but an unconditional offer for the gateway program. So you have that fallback. So what we want to do is keep you working, keep you stretching your academics. So you're striving for the higher entry grades, so higher exam results. But what we're going to do is just give you that fallback that we have the gateway program if that doesn't quite work out. So they're the kind of things that we may do on receipt of your application. Just to kind of unpick what these gateway programs are. So they are supported entry routes, as I said, and we have 4 key programs. We have Gateway to Arts, Gateway to Science, Gateway to Medicine, and Gateway to Physics and Astronomy. They are all slightly different. They have slightly different entry requirements, and the Gateway to Medicine has a slightly different application process. But I'm going to just go through them and explain how the entry processes work, and hopefully we can ask questions at the end if anybody's got any more questions. So the Gateway to Medicine programme, look at that one first. That is available to students who are just completing S5 at a state-funded secondary school. This is not a UCAS course, so it's not something that you apply for in advance. So if you're just in your S5 and you're thinking about applying to medicine, you've got plans to go into S6, but you're a bit concerned that maybe you might not meet perhaps the entry grades. If you go onto the website, have a look to see if you meet the entry criteria, and you can email us on gateway2@standrews.ac.uk and we'll confirm your eligibility. The entry grades for Gateway are AA, BB higher, including chemistry and biology, maths or physics. And what the Gateway programme is we would take a note of interest for you for Gateway to Medicine at this point, and then we would contact you on results day in August and say, how did your exams go? Do you still want to be considered for the Gateway to Medicine programme? If your exam results have gone well and you want to go into 6th year and move on to applying for A100, that's great. If they maybe weren't quite what you thought they were, we would then send you an application form for the Gateway to Medicine programme, and you'd be interviewed by the medical school. And what you would do is, instead of returning to school for S6, you potentially would come to St Andrews in September. So it all happens very quickly. So you have something you have to think about at the Gateway to Medicine. And you would do a year at St Andrews doing first year chemistry, biology, and one other subject. And at the end of that year, if you've passed those modules successfully, you'll go into first year of the A100. So you'll dip out of school, do the extra year with us, and then you'll come back into the A100 as if you'd just left school at 6th year. So the time frame is the same. It's not adding any extra time onto your study. It just kind of takes you out of school, gives you a bit of support, and then pops you back into the A100 route after the end. The good thing with the Gateway to Medicine programme is, if you decide in that year that medicine is not for you, or you perhaps don't get the grades to progress to the medical programme, you can actually progress into year 2 of a science programme. So if you've done chemistry, biology, you can potentially move on to a chemistry or biology degree. And then you would go into 2nd year, so you're a year ahead of everybody. So there's usually an option at the end for you to move forward regardless. Key features of the Gateway to Medicine: you have a designated support person within the Access team. So one of my colleagues will be looking after you through the year, making sure you're okay, that there's nothing you need. They offer pastoral support, but we also offer support with UCAT testing, MMI practice, making sure that you're prepared for going through into that medical programme. You have an advisor of studies for your first year to make sure you take the right subjects and keep you right academically. There are specific scholarships for the Gateway to Medicine programme, which you can apply for at the time we send you the pre-app. And then we have extra peer-led tutorials in chemistry and biology in your first year to make sure that you're getting all the additional help that you need to pass those modules successfully. So you have your standard teaching plus 2 hours a week in those 2 subjects, with a senior student in either chemistry or biology to help you work through the material each week. Moving on to the Gateway to Physics. This again is for UK students who meet the eligibility criteria. This is a UCAS course, so you just apply for this exactly the same as any other. Entrance grades for the Gateway to Physics and Astronomy are A and 4Bs at higher, and you must have an A in maths and a B in physics, or vice versa, and that can be over 2 sittings. At the end of year 1, you'll move into year 2 of one of the physics programmes or potentially maths. And the key features of the Gateway to Physics programme is that you have additional contact time. So you do the standard undergraduate first year maths and physics, plus there's support modules that are run by a physics tutor. So you have an additional 30 hours of contact time a week studying maths and physics with a member of the physics team. So they make sure that you're getting all the support you need to catch up on the maths and physics to successfully transition into second year. So most of your modules will be the same, it's just these extra modules you do for the physics and maths support. So you have that Gateway tutor, different range of options for progression into maths, physics, astronomy, etc. And there are bursaries available for and scholarships for the Gateway to Physics. Some of them, again, are quite substantial, so they're worth looking at just to give you that support. And then finally, just on one slide together, I think I've flipped on 2 slides. We have our Gateway to Arts or Science programmes. So these are similar to the Gateway to Physics, but what we do is instead of admitting you into a school, we admit you into the faculty, either of arts or science. So those lists of subjects that we looked at, that's everything that would be available to you in the Gateway to Arts or Gateway to Science. This again is a UCAS programme, so you apply for it through UCAS directly. And it's only for school leavers, and there are eligibility criteria, and we would assess that. Entry grades are 4Bs at higher. If there are any subject-specific requirements for the subject you want to take to honours, so if you want to do French, you're not applying for French directly, but we would be looking to see French in your personal statement, and we'd be looking to see that you're setting higher French because that is a requirement. So you need to bear that in mind when you're thinking about it. And you come in and you stay on the Gateway programme for 2 years, and at the end of year 2, if you've met all the entry academic requirements, you move into the 3rd year of the honours programme that you want to do. So you'll always come in with that intention of doing English or biology. It's just the way you're coming in is slightly different, and you're on these Gateway routes for the first 2 years. All your classes are the same. There's no difference academically for you at all, and your progression routes are exactly the same. But what it allows us to do is provide you with that wraparound support in those first 2 years. So again, you will have a designated advisor of studies. You have a dedicated contact point within admissions. At the moment, that is me, but I think there may be other staff coming on board for the new year. We have that peer mentoring, the same as the Gateway to Medicine. So there's 2 hours a week of peer-led tutorials every week in the subject that you think you want to take to honours. So that will be with a 3rd or a 4th year student in that subject, and they'll walk you through each week some of the materials. You can chat about it, you can have a further discussion. They'll also talk you through some soft skills development, help you look at past papers, how do you revise for a psychology exam, how do you revise for an English paper, biology paper. So they try and make it a bit more specific to the subject. It's really about development and making sure that you're settled and giving you that extra space. So how to apply for the programmes? They are all slightly different, as I said. So Gateway to Art, Gateway to Science are UCAS programmes, and the codes are on the screen there. Gateway to Physics and Astronomy is also a UCAS programme, and the codes, again, are on that slide, and you can search for them on UCAS. The Gateway to Medicine, that is, you need to email us for eligibility because that is only open to students just finishing S5 rather. What might happen if you don't want to apply to the Gateway to Arts or the Gateway to Science directly, if you apply for a subject, but we think actually the Gateway programme might be more suitable, we might call you for interview and have a chat through the Gateway programmes, and that's where those dual offers that I was talking about might come in, or we might make a specific offer for the Gateway programme only, depending on how we feel about your application and what sort of needs that you think you might have, what support needs you think might be of benefit to you. I will PDF these slides and send them on to John, so the codes will be available. And then finally, just to wrap up, just to touch on a couple of things. So St Andrews has a really wide range of financial support packages for students to apply to, and I would encourage anybody who is thinking about applying to St Andrews to look at the scholarship pages. We have the St Andrews Access Scholarship, which is based entirely on financial need. And we have amounts within that are tiered. So there's guaranteed amount for different income brackets, and then there's top-ups based on income. So it can potentially be up to over £4,000 per year, depending on what you're awarded. There are what we call our ward law scholarships, so you could apply for some of them. They're quite big donor donated scholarships, and there's various other things that you can apply for. So please do have a really good look. Make sure that you've applied for every single thing that you're eligible for. There are discounted sports memberships available as well as part of some of the financial support packages. So the sports membership is quite expensive. So if you are awarded one of the scholarships, it's potential that you either have a free membership or it is considerably discounted to help you be able to access the facilities at the sports centre and all the sports clubs. Main thing to note about our scholarships applications are the applications close at the end of March. So that is a little bit earlier than you might think. So what we would encourage you to do is as soon as you've made your application to St Andrews, make that scholarship application at the same time. And these might be a time to have a conversation with your parents and guardians and families about money. It might be the first time you've actually really sat down and spoken about money, but there will be documents that you will need to verify household income, so things like P60s and payslips. So you might just need to have a bit of a discussion with the household about getting all that information together so that you've got everything ready and to hand. And we try and get those applications in that little bit earlier so that we can actually put our UCAS offers out and our scholarship offers out at around about the same time. So when you're considering what subjects you want to take, what offers you want to take from different universities, you know what finance package is going to come with that. So that might help you make your decision. And finally, just to touch on the additional support that is out with the supported pathways. As I said, St Andrews is quite a small university. And what that does mean is that we actually are able to offer quite a good support package to all students, because you will never walk around Centre St Andrews and not see somebody that you know. Student community is quite a tight-knit community. People tend to notice if maybe somebody's struggling a little bit. Tutors will notice. The wardens in the halls are there to make sure that everyone's okay. So there's a really good sense of community, and that pastoral support can kick in quite quickly. And our student services team offer a really good range of support, from personal wellbeing through to academic support, financial support. There's additional funds for students once they're here. We have our student developers that can help you with personal and professional development and setting up doing skills development courses, Microsoft courses. And then we have our career centre that can help you develop your LinkedIn profiles and start looking at building your CV during your studies so that when you graduate, you've got a nice rounded CV. So there's lots of different bits of support that can come into play at St Andrews, which are worth thinking about as part of your studies. So, John, that's pretty much my last slide, but I'd just like to say, if you are at all curious about St Andrews, want to come and have a bit of a closer look, maybe want to have a bit of a discussion with people in person, we are doing limited on-campus visits, which you can book online. There are certain schools certain areas which are priority, so we're only doing in really small groups. The Scottish schools are down as one of the priority visits. So if there's a group of you want to come up, have a bit of a tour and maybe have a bit of a chat with a member of staff, go on the website, book yourself on, or come through John, or email me directly, and we can set that up. More than happy to do that. But the email address that comes directly through to my team is schools.access, but I know John's obviously got an email address as well. But I think that's pretty much all my slides, John. If I want to just hand it back to you, I'm happy to take any questions that will come in.
Perfect. No, thank you, Joanna. It was great to hear about the gateway offer, and potentially it's something that parents haven't heard about previously, and potentially maybe saw St Andrews somewhere that they couldn't progress onto, but actually the gateway offer shows that there is a route and pathway there onto a variety of courses. So hopefully it's inspired a couple of people to apply. So I'm not seeing any comments coming through, but what we'll do is give it a couple of minutes, just give people sort of thinking time. One thing I wanted to pick up was around SAS funding, and I think you said it in your presentation is that the gateway courses are SAS eligible. What happens if obviously someone moves on to call it a mainstream university course? Do they use 1 year worth of SAS funding, or how does that work in terms of will they be expected to pay later on?
The gateway to science, gateway to arts, gateway to physics, you are essentially going into first year of university. It's the only thing that's different is that little bit of wraparound support. So we've brought the students together as a group so that we can kind of make sure they're okay. With the gateway to medicine, that year is funded by SAS. because it's considered part of the programme. So they are all fully SAS funded, but there are scholarships available for Gateway to Physics, Gateway to Medicine. There's some quite big scholarships. They're maintenance awards to help towards the cost of accommodation, things like that. Because obviously coming into the Gateway to Medicine, you perhaps weren't intending to go to university in September and you're making a decision in August. So we do have some big financial packages that would help support students to pay for their accommodation through that first year until the year that you would anticipate. And then there are further scholarships available. We also, so they're all SAS fundable, we also have a relationship with the Robertson Trust. So we nominate students who have applied for scholarships. We can nominate to the Robertson Trust, which comes with a whole host of soft skills development around it. So we put people forward and you'll be invited to apply for the Robertson Trust, which is also about £4,000 a year, I think. So it's another quite big one.
Perfect. No, thank you, Joanna, because I know that's sort of a concern, particularly for one of my schools, is around funding and how young people can finance themselves. There is one question that's come through YouTube or through the channel, and that's sort of around COVID-19. So obviously the last few years have been impacted by the pandemic and COVID-19, and we know the challenges that's presented itself. How do you envisage the course being run, say, next year? So a lot of the pupils and parents listening just now will be looking at next year's progression. Will that be on campus? Will it be hybrid? It would be interesting to know a bit more.
So over the last couple of years, we have tried to teach as much within the guidelines that were given. So where we could have students on campus, we have. So this semester it's been small class teaching, anything under, I think it's 30 students in a room has gone ahead. But the students are not, there's no obligation for the students to do that if they don't feel comfortable or they can't get back to St Andrews. So at the moment we are running hybrid. There are live, but it isn't online learning, so it is live teaching. So they will still have a tutorial with a person live at specific time. It's not, lectures are recorded, so anywhere where there's been, big lecture theatres, 200-300 people, they're all recorded and available for students to watch, which students actually seem to quite like. It's good to be able to go back over that material. Moving forward into January, all being well, touch wood, we are going to start to transition back to more teaching on campus where we can as restrictions start to lift. And I, with the best will in the world, we don't really know what's going to happen by September, but I think we will move back to as normal a teaching experience as we can have within the guidelines as they unfold, develop. If we need to still have online teaching next year, that will still be available. But we hope to transition back to normal as quickly as we can. But we've done, I think they've done quite well. The students all seem to be relatively happy with kind of how things have, the hybrid balance between the two.
No, that's ideal, because I know it's obviously a concern within education, so it's good to know that we might be progressing, or young people will get that full university experience potentially going forward. I'm not seeing any further comments coming through on the channel. What we'll do is we will circulate the slides as Joanna has offered, as well as a link to this evening's webinar so people can watch it back. It will also sit on our YouTube channel over the next couple of days if anyone wants to go back and see any of the information that's been provided. All that's left for me to do is say thank you very much, Joanna. It's been a pleasure having you on. Hopefully we see an uptick in applications to the Gateway courses. And if anyone has any questions, our email address at DYW will appear shortly. Please do email dyw@edinburghchamber.co.uk or any of the email addresses that Joanna has provided. Thank you very much.